Olivia Patel checked her appearance one last time in her car's mirror before stepping out into the crisp morning air. Her tailored navy suit and pearl earrings projected exactly what she wanted her colleagues at Horizon Financial to see: success, confidence, and control. She smoothed an invisible wrinkle from her sleeve and walked briskly toward the gleaming glass doors of the 12-story building, where she'd worked for the past 7 years. As a senior account manager, Olivia had earned her corner office on the 9th floor. She had also earned a reputation for being exceptionally particular about how things were done. Some called her detail-oriented. Others, when she was out of earshot, used less flattering terms. "Good morning, Ms. Patel," said the security guard, tipping his hat slightly. "Morning, Joe," she replied without breaking stride or looking up from her phone. The elevator doors opened as if on cue, and Olivia stepped inside, pressing the button for the 9th floor. She checked her watch. 7:30 a.m., a full hour before most employees would arrive. She liked these quiet mornings when she could prepare for the day without interruptions. The elevator stopped on the 4th floor, and a woman in a gray uniform stepped in, pushing a cleaning cart. Olivia immediately recognized Elena Diaz, one of the building's cleaning staff. What caught Olivia off guard was the small boy half hidden behind Elena's legs, clutching a worn backpack and looking at the floor. "Good morning, Ms. Patel," Elena said softly, her accent thick but her English clear. Olivia nodded curtly, her gaze fixed on the child. "I wasn't aware that Bring Your Child to Work Day had been moved," she said, not bothering to hide her disapproval. Elena's cheeks flushed. "I'm sorry, Ms. Patel. My babysitter canceled last minute and my sister who usually watches him is sick. It's just for today. I promise he won't be any trouble." The boy, who couldn't have been older than 8, looked up briefly before ducking his head again. He had his mother's warm brown eyes and the same gentle expression. "What's your name?" Olivia asked, her tone softer than she intended. "Diego," the boy whispered, still not meeting her eyes. The elevator chimed as they reached the 9th floor. Olivia stepped out without another word, but she could feel a knot forming in her stomach. She didn't approve of children in the workplace. It was unprofessional and against company policy, but she also recognized the impossible situation many of the cleaning staff faced as single parents with limited resources. As the doors closed behind her, Olivia pushed the thought away. She had bigger concerns today, like the Wilson account presentation at 10 a.m. that could mean a promotion if it went well. Her office was exactly as she'd left it the previous evening. Pristine, organized with not a paper out of place. Olivia prided herself on this order. Her desk held 3 items: her computer, a leather portfolio containing today's agenda, and a small crystal dish where she always placed her keys and ID badge. Everything had its place in Olivia's world. She settled into her morning routine, reviewing her presentation notes while sipping the premium coffee she'd picked up on her drive-in. 2 hours of uninterrupted preparation would ensure today's meeting went flawlessly. Meanwhile, Elena worked efficiently through her morning cleaning routine, moving from office to office on the 9th floor. Diego sat quietly on a small stool beside her cart, reading a dog-eared chapter book and occasionally helping his mother by holding the dustpan while she swept. "Remember what I told you," Elena said softly in Spanish as they approached Olivia's office. "Ms. Patel is very particular about her space. Don't touch anything, okay? Just sit by the door with your book." Diego nodded solemnly. He'd been coming to work with his mother occasionally since he was 5, and he knew the rules well. Most of the early arriving employees smiled at him or offered him candy. Some even kept children's books in their offices for the days he visited. But Ms. Patel was different. Diego could sense it in the way his mother's shoulders tensed when they entered her office. Elena knocked gently on the open door. "Excuse me, Ms. Patel, may I clean your office now?" Olivia looked up from her computer, clearly annoyed by the interruption. "Make it quick," she said, turning back to her screen. Elena worked silently and efficiently, emptying the small wastebasket, wiping down surfaces and quickly running the vacuum over the carpet. Diego sat cross-legged by the door, his eyes never leaving his book. "The plants need watering," Olivia said without looking up, "and the blinds are dusty." "Yes, Ms. Patel, right away," Elena replied, reaching for the small watering can on her cart. As Elena moved to the window to tend to the blinds, Olivia's phone rang. It was her boss asking her to come to his office immediately about the Wilson presentation. Olivia quickly gathered her portfolio and hurried out, leaving Elena and Diego alone in the office. "Finish your chapter while I clean the blinds," Elena told Diego, who nodded and turned a page in his book. Throughout the building, the early morning quiet was giving way to the bustling energy of a new workday. The elevator doors opened and closed with increasing frequency as employees arrived, carrying coffee cups and briefcases, calling out greetings to one another. On the 9th floor, Thomas Chen, the department head, was meeting with Olivia in his office. "The Wilson representatives are arriving an hour early," he explained. "They've had a change in their schedule and need to catch an earlier flight back to Chicago. Can you be ready by 9 instead of 10? Olivia felt a flutter of panic but maintained her composed expression. "Of course," she replied confidently. "I just need to grab my presentation materials from my office." Back in her office, Elena was just finishing with the blinds when Diego noticed something on Olivia's desk. The small crystal dish that usually held her keys was empty, but a set of keys lay precariously close to the edge of the desk, apparently left in haste when Olivia had rushed out to meet with her boss. Diego glanced at his mother, who was focused on her task. He hesitated, then quietly stood up. He'd been taught to be helpful and responsible, and those keys looked like they might fall. Moving carefully, he picked them up, noticing how heavy and important they felt in his small hand. He looked around, wondering where to put them. The crystal dish seemed the obvious choice, but it had been moved to make way for cleaning. Diego spotted a drawer that was slightly ajar. Perhaps that's where the dish belonged. He carefully placed the keys inside and closed the drawer, feeling proud of his good deed. Then he returned to his spot by the door and his book, certain that he'd done the right thing. Across the floor, Olivia was finishing her conversation with Thomas. "I've been considering you for the team lead position on the international accounts," he said. "How this Wilson presentation goes will factor heavily into my decision." Olivia felt a surge of excitement. This was the opportunity she'd been working toward for years. "You won't be disappointed," she assured him. By the time Olivia returned to her office, Elena and Diego had moved on to clean the conference room. Olivia gathered her portfolio and reached for her keys, only to find the crystal dish empty. She frowned, certain she'd left them there. She always left them there. Checking her pockets yielded nothing. She looked under her portfolio, around her computer, even on the floor beneath her desk. No keys. The minutes ticked by as her search grew more frantic. Without those keys, she couldn't access the storage room where the presentation materials were kept, including the prototypes the Wilson representatives were expecting to see. The Wilson meeting was now 45 minutes away. Olivia felt sweat beading on her forehead as she emptied her purse onto her desk. Still no keys. She picked up her phone and called the security desk. "Joe, it's Olivia Patel. Have you seen my office keys? I may have dropped them in the lobby this morning." "No, Miss Patel, but I'll check and call you right back." Olivia paced her office, checking the same spots over and over. This wasn't like her. She never misplaced things. Everything in her life had its proper place. That was how she maintained control. As she turned to check her desk one more time, she spotted Elena and Diego through the glass wall of her office, now cleaning the break room across the hall. Her eyes narrowed as she watched the boy helping his mother stock the paper towel dispenser. A thought struck her. The boy had been in her office while she was meeting with Thomas. Had he taken her keys? It seemed unlikely, but she was running out of options and time. The Wilsons would be arriving soon, and her future at the company hung in the balance. Olivia strode across the hall, her heels clicking sharply against the tile floor. Elena looked up, startled by the sound. "Your son?" Olivia said, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. "Was he touching things in my office while you were cleaning?" Elena's expression shifted from surprise to concern. "No, Miss Patel, Diego knows the rules. He doesn't touch anything in the offices." "My keys are missing," Olivia said. "They were on my desk and now they're gone." Diego looked up at the mention of keys, his eyes widening with recognition. He tugged gently on his mother's sleeve. "Mama," he whispered. "I think she means the keys I found." The morning that had begun with such promise was about to take a dramatic turn, one that would change the lives of everyone involved in ways none of them could have predicted. Olivia's face flushed, with a mix of anger and relief as she stared down at Diego. "What did you do with my keys?" she demanded, her voice rising just enough to draw attention from nearby cubicles. Elena placed a protective hand on her son's shoulder. Diego, did you touch Miss Patel's keys? The boy nodded slowly, his eyes wide with worry. They were going to fall off the desk, he explained in a small voice. I was trying to help. Where did you put them? Olivia asked, making a visible effort to control her tone as curious onlookers began to gather. Diego pointed toward Olivia's office. In the drawer, the one that was open a little bit. Olivia spun around and marched back to her office with Elena and Diego following close behind. By now, word had spread through the floor like wildfire. Ms. Patel's keys were missing and the cleaning lady's kid was somehow involved. A small crowd of employees lingered near the doorway, pretending to be engaged in morning conversations while stealing glances at the unfolding drama. Inside her office, Olivia yanked open her desk drawer, and there they were, her keys neatly placed inside. She snatched them up, clutching them tightly as if they might disappear again. These were on my desk for a reason, she said, turning to face Diego. You had no right to move them. I'm so sorry. Ms. Patel, Elena jumped in. He thought he was helping. He didn't mean any harm. Olivia checked her watch. 35 minutes until the Wilson meeting. The relief of finding her keys quickly gave way to renewed stress about the presentation. She needed to collect herself, gather her materials from the storage room, and prepare the conference room. This interruption had cost her valuable time. You need to keep better control of your child, she said to Elena, loud enough for those hovering outside to hear. This is a professional workplace, not a daycare center. Diego's shoulders slumped and he stared at the floor. I'm sorry, he whispered. The keys were going to fall. Something in the boy's defeated posture should have softened Olivia's anger. But the pressure of the impending meeting and the audience of co-workers watching the scene unfold pushed her in the opposite direction. This is exactly why children don't belong in an office, she continued, addressing both Elena and the onlookers. Important things get misplaced, work gets disrupted. Ms. Patel, a deep voice interrupted from the doorway. Thomas Chen stood there, his expression unreadable. Is everything all right? I could hear you from my office. The gathered employees quickly dispersed, suddenly finding urgent tasks that needed their attention. Olivia straightened her jacket, embarrassed to be caught in such an unprofessional display. Everything's fine now, she said. There was a misunderstanding about some misplaced items, but it's resolved. I'm just about to get the materials ready for the Wilson meeting. Thomas's gaze moved from Olivia to Elena and Diego, noting the woman's rigid posture and the boy's downcast eyes. Perhaps we could discuss this later, he suggested. The Wilsons just called from their car. They'll be here in 20 minutes earlier than we expected. Olivia felt her heart rate spike. 20 minutes? I'll head to the storage room right away. As Thomas nodded and turned to leave, Olivia grabbed her keys and portfolio. She paused at the door, looking back at Elena and Diego. We'll discuss this incident later, she said coldly. For now, please finish your work without touching anything else. As Olivia hurried down the hallway toward the storage room, a knot of guilt formed in her stomach. Had she overreacted? The boy had only been trying to help, after all. But the thought was quickly pushed aside by more pressing concerns. The Wilson presentation, the potential promotion, the 20 minutes she now had to prepare for a meeting that could define her career. Meanwhile, Elena guided Diego back to her cleaning cart, her face tight with worry and embarrassment. Am I in trouble, Mama? Diego asked quietly. Elena squeezed his shoulder. No, mijo. You were trying to do something good. Ms. Patel is just very busy and worried about her meeting. But Diego could tell from his mother's expression that the situation was more serious than she was letting on. He'd never seen her look so worried at work before. Will you lose your job? He asked, his voice barely audible. Elena forced a smile. Of course not. Now help me finish the break room and then we'll go to the supply closet to refill the cart. As they worked, Diego noticed how the other employees looked at them, some with pity, others with curiosity, a few with something that looked like disapproval. He wished he could disappear, or better yet, go back in time and leave those keys exactly where they had been. Across the floor, Olivia was rushing through the storage room, gathering presentation folders, product samples, and the prototype case that the Wilson representatives would be expecting to see. Her mind raced with the details of the presentation while the incident with the boy lingered like an annoying buzz in the background of her thoughts. She had 15 minutes left when she finally arrived at the conference room, arms full of materials. To her surprise, the room had already been prepared. Water pitchers filled, notepads and pens at each seat, blinds adjusted to eliminate glare on the presentation screen. As she set down her materials, she noticed a small handwritten note on the presenter's podium. "Good luck with your meeting." Elena and Diego. The knot in Olivia's stomach tightened. Despite how she had treated them, they had gone out of their way to help her prepare. She glanced at the clock, 14 minutes until the Wilsons arrived. Not enough time to find Elena and make things right, even if she wanted to. Olivia spent the next 10 minutes arranging her materials and reviewing her notes one last time. She was so focused that she didn't notice Thomas enter the room until he spoke. "Everything set?" he asked. "They just arrived in the lobby. Joe is bringing them up now." Olivia nodded, pushing all thoughts of the morning's drama from her mind. "Everything's ready." Thomas smiled approvingly as he surveyed the well-prepared room. "Excellent work, as always, Olivia. This is why you're being considered for the team lead position." His words should have filled her with pride, but instead, they left her feeling strangely hollow. The meeting with the Wilson representatives went precisely as planned. Olivia's presentation was flawless, the prototypes were well received, and by the end of the hour, Thomas was shaking hands with the visitors and talking about expanded contracts. It was, by all professional measures, a complete success. As the Wilsons gathered their things to leave, the older of the two representatives, a woman with steel-gray hair and keen eyes, paused beside Olivia. "That young boy who brought in extra water during the presentation, was that your son?" she asked. Olivia blinked in confusion. "I'm sorry?" "The little boy who came in quietly with fresh water pitchers about halfway through. Very polite, didn't interrupt at all. I assumed he was part of some Take Your Child to Work program." Olivia suddenly remembered seeing Diego slip into the room during her presentation, carefully replacing the water pitchers that had been emptied during the meeting's first half. She had been so focused on her delivery that she'd barely registered his presence. "No, he's not my son," Olivia replied. He's the son of one of our cleaning staff." The woman smiled warmly. "Well, he's being raised right. Such thoughtfulness is rare these days, especially in children. You must have a wonderful workplace culture here to inspire that kind of consideration." After the Wilsons had gone, Thomas pulled Olivia aside, his face glowing with satisfaction. "That couldn't have gone better," he said. "Mrs. Wilson specifically mentioned how impressed she was with our attention to detail and our workplace environment. I think we can count on their business for years to come." Olivia nodded, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She needed to find Elena and Diego. It took her nearly 20 minutes to locate them, working quietly on the 7th floor. When Elena saw Olivia approaching, she straightened up, her expression guarded. "Ms. Patel," she said formally. "Is there something you need?" Diego partially hid behind his mother, peeking out cautiously at the woman who had scolded him earlier. Olivia took a deep breath. "I wanted to thank you both for preparing the conference room, and for the note. And Diego, thank you for bringing fresh water during the meeting." The clients noticed and were impressed. Elena's posture relaxed slightly. "It was no problem. Diego wanted to help after what happened." Olivia looked directly at the boy. "Diego, I owe you an apology. You were trying to help when you put my keys in the drawer, and I reacted badly because I was stressed about my meeting. That wasn't fair to you." Diego's eyes widened in surprise. Adults rarely apologized to him, especially not important adults in business suits. "It's okay," he said softly. "Did your meeting go good?" "It went very well," Olivia replied with a small smile. "And partly because of you two." The tension that had been building all morning, the stress of the presentation, the embarrassment of the key incident, the guilt over her behavior, suddenly seemed to dissipate. But as Olivia stood there, an uncomfortable realization dawned on her. This wouldn't be the last time Elena had to bring Diego to work. The underlying problem remained unsolved. As she turned to head back to her office, Olivia made a mental note to speak with Thomas about the company's policies regarding employees with childcare challenges. Perhaps there was a better solution than forcing parents like Elena to choose between their children and their livelihoods. What Olivia didn't realize was that the morning's events had set in motion a chain reaction that would culminate in a moment far more critical than any business presentation. A moment when, despite all her careful planning and control, everything would hang in the balance, including her own life. The next morning arrived with dark clouds and the promise of heavy rain. Olivia hurried from her car to the building entrance, her leather portfolio held over her head as a makeshift umbrella. The events of the previous day still lingered in her mind, the missing keys, her harsh reaction to Diego, and the surprisingly successful Wilson meeting. As she passed through the lobby, she noticed a small commotion near the security desk. Elena stood there looking distressed as she spoke with Joe, the security guard. Diego was at her side, clutching his backpack and looking even more worried than his mother. Olivia hesitated, then changed course and approached them. "Is everything all right?" she asked. Elena turned, surprise flickering across her face. "Ms. Patel, good morning. It's just, my sister, who usually watches Diego, is still sick, and the daycare center won't take him because he has a small cough." She lowered her voice. "I can't afford to miss work, but after yesterday..." Joe, the security guard, looked uncomfortable. "I explained that we can't bend the rules 2 days in a row. If Mr. Reynolds finds out, we could all be in trouble." Olivia recognized the name. Reynolds was the building manager, known for his strict enforcement of policies. She glanced at Diego, who was trying his best to suppress a small cough. Making a split-second decision that surprised even herself, Olivia said, "Diego can stay in my office this morning. I have back-to-back meetings, so I won't be using it until after lunch." Elena's eyes widened. "Ms. Patel, I couldn't ask you to..." "You didn't ask," Olivia cut in. "I offered. It's just for today, and it solves our immediate problem." Relief washed over Elena's face. "Thank you. I don't know what to say. Just make sure he has something quiet to do," Olivia replied, already wondering if she'd regret this impulsive offer. 20 minutes later, Diego was settled in a corner of Olivia's office with his books and a small tablet Elena had packed for emergencies. Olivia had given him clear instructions: stay quiet, don't touch anything, and use the phone on her desk to call the front desk if he needed anything urgent. "I have meetings until noon," she told him, checking her watch. "Your mother will check on you when she cleans this floor." Diego nodded solemnly. "I won't touch anything this time, Miss Patel, I promise." Something in his earnest expression softened Olivia's usual business-like demeanor. "I know you were trying to help yesterday, just ask before moving things in the future, okay?" With that, she left for her first meeting, a monthly department review with Thomas and the other account managers. As she settled into her seat in the conference room, she found herself checking the time, wondering if Diego was being careful with her things. "Olivia?" Thomas's voice broke into her thoughts. "Would you share the results from the Wilson meeting with the team?" She quickly refocused, launching into a detailed account of the previous day's presentation. The meeting stretched from 45 minutes to nearly 2 hours as discussions about new business strategies dominated the conversation. By the time Olivia checked her watch again, it was almost noon, much later than she'd planned to leave Diego alone. She excused herself as soon as the meeting concluded and hurried back to her office. She found Diego exactly where she'd left him, but now surrounded by a small crowd of employees. To her astonishment, he was teaching them how to fold origami animals from sticky notes. "Ms. Patel," he exclaimed when he saw her. "I didn't touch your stuff, I promise. These nice people brought me paper when they came to say hi." Olivia recognized the group: Anita from accounting, Luis from legal, and a few others who had witnessed yesterday's key incident. They looked up sheepishly as she entered. "We heard he was here for the day," Luis explained. "Thought we'd check in during our lunch break." Anita held up a perfectly folded paper crane. "The kid's got talent. You should see what he did with that report draft you left on your desk." Olivia's eyes darted to her desk where a stack of papers now featured an intricate border of tiny folded creatures. For a moment, she felt a flash of the same anger that had overtaken her yesterday, but it quickly faded when she saw Diego's face fall in anticipation of her reaction. "It's just the draft," she found herself saying. "The final version is on my computer." She picked up one of the tiny paper foxes. "These are actually quite impressive." Diego's face lit up. "My abuela taught me. She says folding paper calms the mind." The impromptu gathering dispersed as people returned to work, leaving Olivia alone with Diego again. She checked her phone and saw a message from Elena saying she'd be up to get Diego for lunch in 10 minutes. "Did you behave yourself this morning?" Olivia asked, settling behind her desk. Diego nodded enthusiastically. Yes, and I did all my reading for school. He hesitated, then added, Thank you for letting me stay here. I know you didn't want to. His perception caught Olivia off guard. What makes you say that? Diego shrugged. You don't like kids at work. You said so yesterday. Olivia felt an unexpected twinge of shame. It's not that I don't like kid, she said carefully. It's just that work and personal life are supposed to be separate, but they can't always be separate, right? Diego asked with the simple logic of childhood. Sometimes life gets messy. Before Olivia could respond, her office phone rang. It was the reception desk informing her that the chairman of the board had arrived unexpectedly and was asking to meet with all department heads immediately. I have to go, she told Diego, standing quickly. Your mother will be here any minute. Remember, don't touch anything, Diego finished for her with a small smile. I know. Olivia hurried to the executive conference room, her mind racing. The chairman rarely visited without advance notice. When she arrived, Thomas was already there, looking tense. What's going on? She whispered as she took her seat. Reynolds finally convinced the board to outsource the cleaning staff. Thomas replied quietly. They're announcing the decision today. By next month, all current cleaning personnel will be replaced with a contracted service. Olivia felt a cold weight settle in her stomach. All of them? What about? Her question was cut short as the chairman entered and called the meeting to order. For the next 45 minutes, Olivia listened with growing discomfort as he outlined the cost-saving benefits of outsourcing non-essential personnel. The existing cleaning staff would be given 2 weeks' notice by the end of the day. When the meeting finally concluded, Olivia pulled Thomas aside. What about employees like Elena? Single parents who depend on this job and the schedule flexibility? Thomas looked surprised at her concern. Since when are you interested in the cleaning staff's personal situations? Yesterday you were complaining about children in the workplace. Olivia had no good answer. Her history of complaints about unprofessional behavior from support staff had been consistent over her years at the company. She'd never considered the human cost of her rigid expectations. She returned to her office deep in thought, only to find it empty. A note on her desk read, Took Diego to lunch. Thank you again for your kindness. Elena, kindness. The words seemed to mock her. One small gesture didn't erase years of indifference, or the fact that she now knew Elena would lose her job in 2 weeks. Olivia sat heavily in her chair, her gaze landing on the tiny paper animals still decorating her desk. She picked one up, turning it over in her fingers. The delicate folds represented a patience and creativity she rarely took time to appreciate. The office intercom buzzed, announcing the arrival of a delivery in the lobby. Olivia vaguely remembered ordering lunch to be delivered. She grabbed her purse and headed downstairs, her thoughts still tangled around Elena's impending job loss and what, if anything, she could or should do about it. In the lobby, she collected her food and turned to see Elena and Diego coming through the front doors, returning from their lunch break. Diego was animatedly telling his mother something, his hands moving expressively as he spoke. Olivia made a decision. She would talk to Elena about the outsourcing, give her advance warning before the official notice. It wasn't much, but it might give her a head start on finding new employment. She started toward them, raising her hand in greeting. Neither noticed her as they headed for the employee entrance to the side of the main lobby. Just then, a well-dressed woman rushing through the main doors bumped into Diego, knocking him sideways. The woman barely paused, calling a distracted sorry over her shoulder as she continued toward the elevators. Something about the woman seemed familiar to Olivia. With a jolt, she recognized Veronica Reynolds, the building manager's wife, known for her impatience and sense of entitlement. Diego steadied himself, but his face suddenly crumpled in dismay. He was looking at something on the polished marble floor. Olivia followed his gaze and saw the remains of what appeared to be a small clay figure, now broken into pieces. "Mama, my project," Diego cried, kneeling to gather the fragments. Elena bent down beside him. "Oh, mijo, we can fix it. Don't worry." Olivia moved closer, curious despite herself. "What was it?" Diego looked up, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "My art project for school. I made it for the competition tomorrow." He held up the largest piece, what looked like the head of a small dragon or mythical creature. The lobby doors opened again, and this time Mr. Reynolds himself strode in, followed by the chairman from Olivia's earlier meeting. They were deep in conversation about the outsourcing plan, their voices carrying across the marble expanse. As they passed the small group by the employee entrance, Reynolds glanced over dismissively. His gaze lingered on Diego kneeling on the floor, then shifted to Elena. "Diaz," he said sharply, "you know the rules about children in the building. This is exactly why we're making changes around here." The scene was unfolding into exactly the kind of public humiliation Olivia herself had nearly inflicted on Diego the day before. But this time, she was a witness rather than the instigator. And somehow that made all the difference. Olivia felt her chest tighten as she watched Reynolds tower over Elena and Diego. The same scene had played out yesterday with different actors. Herself in the role of the intimidator, Diego as the intimidated. The parallel was uncomfortable, like looking into a mirror and not liking what she saw. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds," Elena said quietly, helping Diego gather the broken pieces of his art project. "Today was an emergency situation. My sister who watches him is ill." Reynolds crossed his arms. "That's not the company's problem. Rules are rules." The chairman, looking uncomfortable with the confrontation, checked his watch and muttered something about another meeting. He gave Reynolds a quick nod and continued toward the elevators. Diego kept his eyes down, his small fingers carefully collecting each fragment of his broken creation. His shoulders were hunched, making him appear even smaller than he was. Something shifted inside Olivia. Before she could second-guess herself, she stepped forward. "Actually," she said clearly, "Diego is here as my guest today." Reynolds turned, surprise evident on his face. "Ms. Patel?" "I invited him," Olivia continued, moving to stand beside Elena and Diego. "He's been helping me with a project on workplace perspectives. It's part of the company's new community outreach initiative." The lie came easily, fueled by the indignation rising in her chest. Reynolds blinked, clearly caught off guard by her intervention. "I wasn't aware of any such initiative," he said, his tone suggesting he didn't believe her. "It's new," Olivia replied smoothly. "Mr. Chen approved it yesterday after the Wilson presentation. The clients were quite impressed with our workplace culture." She emphasized the last two words, recalling Mrs. Wilson's comment about Diego. Reynolds hesitated, unwilling to challenge one of the company's top account managers, but clearly unhappy with the situation. "Well," he said finally, "in the future, proper paperwork should be filed for all non-guests." He gave Diego a final disapproving look before striding away toward his office. Once he was out of earshot, Elena turned to Olivia. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "Yes, I did," Olivia replied, surprising herself with how much she meant it. She knelt down beside Diego. "Let me see your project." Diego carefully opened his hands, revealing the broken pieces of what had clearly been an intricately crafted dragon. Despite being made of clay, the details were impressive. Scales etched into the body, delicate wings, and an expressive face. "Did you make this yourself?" Olivia asked. Diego nodded. "It took me 3 weeks. The competition is tomorrow, but now—" His voice trailed off as he looked at the fragments. "Maybe we can fix it," Olivia suggested, though the damage looked too extensive for a quick repair. Elena shook her head. "The clay has hardened. Even with glue, you would see all the cracks, and we don't have time to make another one." Diego tried to put on a brave face, but his disappointment was palpable. "It's okay. Maybe next year." Olivia felt a wave of sympathy for the boy. She remembered her own childhood, the crushing disappointment of projects gone wrong, opportunities missed. As an adult, she had learned to build walls around herself, to prioritize professionalism and success above all else. Looking at Diego now, she wondered what she had lost along the way. "I should get back to work," Elena said, gently ushering Diego toward the employee entrance. "Thank you again, Ms. Patel." "Wait," Olivia said suddenly. "There's something else you should know." She hesitated, aware that she wasn't supposed to share information about the outsourcing decision before the official announcement. But looking at Elena's questioning face, she couldn't keep the news to herself. "The company is planning to outsource the cleaning staff," she said quietly. 2 weeks' notice. They're making the announcement today." Elena's expression didn't change, but Olivia saw her hand tighten on Diego's shoulder. "I see," she said after a moment. "Thank you for telling me." I'm sorry, Olivia said, feeling how inadequate the words were. Elena nodded, then guided Diego through the employee entrance, leaving Olivia alone in the lobby with her cooling lunch and a growing sense of unease. Back in her office, Olivia found it difficult to focus on work. The image of Diego's broken project kept intruding on her thoughts. She had spent years climbing the corporate ladder, priding herself on her professionalism and dedication. She had never questioned the invisible barriers between herself and support staff like Elena, barriers of position, privilege, and power. Now those barriers seemed arbitrary and even harmful. She thought about Elena losing her job, about Diego's resigned acceptance of his broken dragon, about her own role in maintaining a system that valued efficiency over humanity. By mid-afternoon, Olivia had made a decision. She gathered her things and left her office, taking the elevator to the executive floor where Thomas had his corner office. "Do you have a minute?" she asked, pausing in his doorway. Thomas looked up from his computer. "For yesterday's Wilson hero, always. Come in." Olivia sat across from him, suddenly uncertain how to begin. "It's about the outsourcing decision." Thomas leaned back in his chair. Not thrilled about having to train new cleaning staff, I take it?" "No, that's not it," Olivia replied. "I'm concerned about the impact on the current employees. Many of them have been with the company for years. They know our systems, our preferences. They're reliable." Thomas studied her with a curious expression. "This doesn't sound like the Olivia Patel I know. Wasn't it you who filed 3 separate complaints about the cleaning staff last year?" Olivia felt her cheeks warm. "I've been reconsidering some things." "Because of the boy? Elena's son?" Thomas asked perceptively. "Partly," Olivia admitted, "but also because outsourcing isn't always the most cost-effective solution in the long run. New contractors won't know our systems. There will be a learning curve, quality control issues, and the current staff has institutional knowledge that's valuable." Thomas considered this. "You make some fair points, but the decision's been made. The board voted unanimously this morning. What if there was an alternative?" Olivia pressed. "A way to keep the current staff while still reducing costs?" "I'm listening," Thomas said, looking intrigued despite himself. For the next 20 minutes, Olivia outlined a plan she had been formulating all afternoon. A restructuring of the cleaning schedules, combined with a partial in-house management system that would eliminate the middleman costs of a contractor while retaining the most experienced current staff. "The numbers work," she concluded, "and we'd avoid the negative publicity of laying off long-term employees, many of whom are single parents or primary breadwinners." Thomas tapped his pen thoughtfully against his desk. "It's an interesting proposal. But why the sudden interest in the cleaning staff's welfare?" Olivia hesitated, then decided on honesty. "Yesterday I almost humiliated a child in front of my colleagues because he moved my keys. Today I watched someone else try to do the same thing. Both times that child's only crime was trying to help. It made me realize I've been rigid, uncompromising. And perhaps that approach isn't always best for the company or its people." Thomas studied her for a long moment. "I can bring this to the board tomorrow," he said finally. "No promises, but they might be willing to reconsider if the numbers make sense." "Thank you," Olivia said, rising to leave. "One more thing," Thomas added. "That team lead position I mentioned? Your handling of the Wilson account confirmed you're qualified. But what I'm seeing today, this willingness to reconsider your perspective, to advocate for others, that's leadership, Olivia. That's what we need more of." Olivia left Thomas's office feeling lighter than she had in months. She had spent years focusing solely on climbing the corporate ladder, never considering who might be helping to hold that ladder steady. As she waited for the elevator, her phone buzzed with a calendar alert. She had completely forgotten about the departmental happy hour scheduled for that evening at a nearby restaurant. Normally, she would make a brief appearance and leave early, but today she felt a strange reluctance to return to her empty apartment. The elevator doors opened, revealing Elena with her cleaning cart. She looked surprised to see Olivia. "Ms. Patel," she greeted. "I was just coming to clean the executive floor. How's Diego?" Olivia asked, stepping into the elevator beside her. "Still disappointed about his project," Elena replied. "But he's a resilient boy. He'll be okay." Olivia nodded, watching the floor numbers change as they descended. "Has anyone told you about the outsourcing yet?" "Yes," Elena said quietly. "We all received notices an hour ago. I've proposed an alternative plan to Mr. Chen, Olivia told her. He's going to bring it to the board tomorrow. It would keep most of the current staff employed. Elena looked at her with surprise. You did that? Why? The elevator reached the lobby and the doors slid open. Olivia stepped out, then turned back to face Elena. Because it's the right thing to do, she said simply. And because sometimes keys belong in drawers, not on the edge of desks where they might fall. Elena's eyes softened with understanding. Thank you, Ms. Patel. Olivia, she corrected. Please call me Olivia. As Elena wheeled her cart out of the elevator, Olivia made a spontaneous decision. Where's Diego now? In the break room on the 3rd floor, Elena replied. The staff there said he could wait for me until my shift ends. Olivia checked her watch. I have an idea. Can he stay a little later tonight? There's something I'd like to try. Half an hour later, Olivia's car pulled up in front of a small art supply store. Diego sat in the passenger seat, his broken dragon carefully wrapped in tissue paper on his lap. Why are we here? He asked, peering curiously through the window. Olivia smiled. Because sometimes when things break, we need to try a different approach to fix them. Inside the store, she led him straight to the pottery section. I've never made anything with clay, she admitted. But I'm pretty good at following instructions. Think you could teach me? Diego's eyes widened. You want to help me remake my dragon? If we work together, Olivia said. I think we might just finish it in time for your competition tomorrow. As they gathered supplies, Olivia felt her phone buzz repeatedly in her purse. Probably colleagues wondering where she was, why she was missing the happy hour. For the first time in years, she didn't immediately reach to check it. Some things she was beginning to realize were more important than maintaining her carefully constructed professional image, and sometimes the most unexpected people could teach the most valuable lessons. If only she was willing to listen. What neither of them could have predicted was that this impromptu art project would lead to a moment where every second counted, a moment that would change both their lives forever. The art supply store closed at 8, but the owner, an older woman with kind eyes and paint-stained hands, let Olivia and Diego stay an extra hour when she heard about the broken dragon and the looming competition deadline. By the time they left, they had a plan and all the materials they needed. We'll need to work quickly, Olivia explained as they drove to her apartment. Clay needs time to dry. Diego nodded, cradling the bag of supplies. I can work all night if I have to. Olivia glanced at him, struck by his determination. Let's not go that far. Your mother would never forgive me. She had called Elena, who was hesitant at first but eventually agreed to let Diego go with Olivia after her shift ended. They would all meet at Olivia's apartment, where they would have more space to work than in Elena's small studio. Olivia's home was nothing like Diego had imagined. He had pictured something sleek and cold like her office. Instead, the apartment was warm and surprisingly lived in, with bookshelves lining the walls and a collection of framed photographs on side tables. You have a lot of books, Diego observed as they set up a workspace on Olivia's dining table. I've always loved reading, she replied, covering the table with a plastic sheet. It's how I escape sometimes. Diego ran his fingers along the spines of a nearby shelf. Escape from what? The question caught Olivia off guard. She paused, a package of clay in her hands. From pressure, I suppose, expectations. Diego nodded solemnly as if he understood completely. That's why I make dragons. In stories, they can fly anywhere they want. For the next 2 hours, they worked side by side, rebuilding the dragon from scratch. Olivia was surprised to find that she enjoyed the process. The feel of the clay, the focus required, the way time seemed to slow down as they worked. Diego was a patient teacher, showing her how to roll tiny scales and shape delicate wings. The doorbell rang just as they were finishing the basic structure. That's probably your mother, Olivia said, wiping her hands on a towel. But when she opened the door, it was Thomas Chen who stood in the hallway looking concerned. Thomas, what are you doing here? You weren't answering your phone, he said. You missed the happy hour and no one could reach you. It's not like you to go off the grid, so I got worried. He peered past her into the apartment. Is everything okay? Before Olivia could answer, Diego appeared beside her. We're making a dragon. Want to see? Thomas's eyebrows shot up in surprise. I see you have company. It's a long story, Olivia said. Come in. I'll explain. Just as Thomas stepped inside, Elena arrived looking tired after her shift but relieved to see Diego. "Mama," Diego exclaimed. "Come look at our dragon. It's even better than the first one." The unlikely group gathered around the dining table, where the half-finished dragon stood proudly. Thomas listened attentively as Diego explained the technique they were using, while Elena watched her son with a mixture of pride and amazement. "He's quite talented," Thomas remarked to Olivia. "I can see why you wanted to help," Olivia nodded. "He is, and this competition means a lot to him." "I've been thinking about your proposal," Thomas said quietly. "The more I consider it, the more sense it makes. I've called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning." Hope flickered in Olivia's chest. "Really, that's wonderful." "No promises," Thomas cautioned. "But I think we have a good chance." Elena, who had overheard, gave Olivia a grateful look but said nothing. There was no need for words. The understanding between them had grown deeper than either could have anticipated 2 days ago. As the evening progressed, Olivia ordered pizza, and the four of them continued working on the dragon. Thomas, surprisingly, had a hidden talent for detail work and took over crafting the tiny teeth and claws. Elena helped with the wings, carefully following Diego's instructions. By 11 o'clock, the dragon was complete, more magnificent than the original, with iridescent scales that caught the light and wings that seemed ready to take flight. Now they just needed it to dry by morning. "I have a food dehydrator," Olivia said, thinking quickly. "It might work if we keep the temperature low." They carefully transferred the dragon to the device, setting it on the lowest heat setting. If they left it overnight, it should be dry enough for the competition. As Elena prepared to take Diego home, the boy wrapped his arms around Olivia in an unexpected hug. "Thank you," he whispered. "No one's ever helped me like this before." Olivia found herself blinking back tears as she hugged him back. "You're welcome. Get some sleep, and I'll bring the dragon to your school tomorrow afternoon." After they left, Thomas helped Olivia clean up the mess of clay and tools. "I've never seen this side of you," he commented. "It's refreshing," Olivia laughed softly. "I've surprised myself these past 2 days." "That's not a bad thing," Thomas said. "Change keeps us growing." The next morning dawned bright and clear. Olivia woke early to check on the dragon, relieved to find it perfectly dry and ready for the competition. She carefully packed it in a box cushioned with tissue paper, then headed to work for the emergency board meeting. The meeting went better than she could have hoped. Her alternative proposal was approved, with the addition of a pilot program for workplace childcare, a suggestion that Thomas had added after meeting Diego. Most of the current cleaning staff would keep their jobs, with Elena being promoted to supervisor of the in-house team. By early afternoon, Olivia was driving to Diego's school, the dragon safely secured on the passenger seat. She felt lighter somehow, as if she had shed a skin she'd been wearing too long. The school parking lot was crowded with parents and visitors attending the art competition. Olivia scanned the crowd looking for Elena or Diego. Finally, she spotted them near the entrance, Diego bouncing nervously on his toes as he waited. "Olivia," he called out when he saw her, waving excitedly. "You came!" "Of course I came," she replied, carefully carrying the box. "I wouldn't miss it," Elena smiled warmly. "Thank you for everything. The dragon and Thomas called me this morning about the new position." "You deserve it," Olivia said simply. They entered the school gymnasium, where tables displayed the students' art projects. Diego's teacher, a young woman with brightly colored glasses, directed them to his assigned spot. "Just in time," she said. "Judging begins in 10 minutes. Olivia carefully removed the dragon from its box, placing it on the display stand Diego had prepared. Under the gymnasium lights, the iridescent scales shimmered with rainbow colors. "It's beautiful," the teacher gasped. "Did you make this all by yourself, Diego?" Before he could answer, Diego looked up at Olivia. "No," he said proudly. "We made it together. Olivia helped me after the first one broke." The teacher looked confused. "Olivia?" "My friend," Diego explained. "She works with my mom." "Friend." The word settled around Olivia's shoulders like a comfortable sweater. The gymnasium was growing crowded as more visitors arrived for the judging. Diego's excitement was contagious as he explained his creation to anyone who would listen. Olivia stepped back, giving him his moment to shine, and found herself standing next to Elena. "He's going to remember this day forever," Elena said softly. Olivia nodded. "So will I." Just then a commotion near the entrance caught their attention. A woman was arguing with one of the teachers, her voice rising above the general chatter. Olivia recognized her instantly. Veronica Reynolds, the woman who had broken Diego's original dragon. What's she doing here? Olivia wondered aloud. Her nephew is in Diego's class, Elena explained. She's a school board member. Veronica was making her way through the displays, a small crowd of administrators trailing behind her. When she reached Diego's table, she stopped abruptly, her eyes widening in recognition. You're the boy from the lobby, she said. The one who... Her voice trailed off as her gaze fell on the dragon. For a moment she seemed genuinely impressed by the craftsmanship. Then her expression hardened. Isn't this competition supposed to be for student work only? She asked loudly. This looks professionally made. Diego's face fell. I made it, he insisted. Olivia just helped me after you broke my first one. Veronica's cheeks flushed. I barely bumped into you. And who is Olivia? Olivia stepped forward. I am. And the dragon is primarily Diego's work. I only assisted. Veronica looked her up and down, recognition dawning. You work for my husband's building. The account manager. Executive account manager, Olivia corrected calmly. And yes, I helped Diego after his original project was broken. Is there a problem with that? The school principal, a tall man with a thoughtful expression, intervened. Our rules allow for adult guidance, Mrs. Reynolds, as long as the concept and primary execution are the student's work. Veronica opened her mouth to protest further, but something in Olivia's steady gaze made her reconsider. With a huff, she moved on to the next display. The principal lingered, examining the dragon with genuine appreciation. This is extraordinary work, Diego. You should be very proud. As the judging began, Olivia felt her phone vibrate in her pocket. It was a text from Thomas. Board approved both proposals. Announcement this afternoon, congratulations. She showed the message to Elena, whose eyes filled with tears of relief. I don't know how to thank you, she whispered. No need, Olivia replied. Just doing what I should have done long ago. Seeing people as people, not just their roles. An hour later, Diego stood on a small stage, a blue ribbon pinned to his shirt and his dragon displayed on a pedestal for all to see. His face glowed with pride as he accepted the first-place certificate. In that moment, watching him, Olivia realized how close she had come to being the villain in his story rather than a friend. How easily her stress and rigid expectations could have caused lasting harm. The thought made her shudder. As Diego ran back to them, clutching his certificate, Olivia made a silent promise to herself, to remember that behind every position, every job title, every role was a person with dreams, challenges, and dragons to build. We won, Diego exclaimed, throwing his arms around both Olivia and his mother. You won, Olivia corrected gently. It was your vision all along. Sometimes, she reflected, the most important keys in life weren't the ones we kept in dishes on our desks. They were the ones that unlocked unexpected doors to compassion, connection, and change. And sometimes those keys appeared in the most unlikely hands.